The intruders entered the shed for some reason when they were making off with the silverware. Brave Toby. The scent leads to the well. I should check it. The intruder's trail is lost behind this wall. The criminals left the house through the French window. They walked to the shed, then across to the well, before fleeing by climbing over the wall. I wonder why they chose such a winding route. This hook might... Bags of seed. Some empty bags were recently moved. Bags of seed. Some empty bags were recent... Small gardening tools. Nothing. This old suitcase sounds hollow. There's something glittering at the bottom. Silverware. This is hot. The Brackenstall coat of arms. It appears that we have found the stolen silverware. Brave Toby. The best nose in the... What do you know about Sir Eustace, Inspector? What was his reputation?
A charming man when sober, but an absolute demon when he was drunk. In such moments he was apparently capable of anything. Why, once he splashed fuel on Lady Brackenstall's dog and set it alight. Another day he threw a decanter of wine at Miss Wright's head.
The alcohol seemed to madden him.
To the point that we were forced to intervene several times to avoid a scandal.
Inspector, I have recovered the stolen silverware.
You are a wizard, Mr. Holmes. And where is it?
In the garden well.
Excuse me?
Unique, isn't it?
Rather absurd. What is the point of stealing silverware and then throwing it down into a well?
Perhaps it was used as a temporary hiding place, or simply the thieves wanted to get rid of it. It is up to us to solve this mystery. We found your mistress's silverware.
Oh, that's good news. You really are as clever as they say.
Indeed. There are 3 glasses on the dining room table. I was wondering if...
Oh, I forgot. When I came to myself the first time, each of them had a glass in his hand. They might have been a father and his 2 sons. They talked together in whispers, and then they left.
We found your silverware, Lady Brackenstall. It had not been taken very far.
Is that true? I am very thankful to you, Mr. Holmes.
Your ladyship? Brave Toby. The best nose in the British Empire. Here it is. The shipping company, the Adelaide, Southampton, London line, and its address. Interesting. It must be the place where they keep the records, including the one for the crew of the Rock of Gibraltar.
I think that if you pretend you're from Scotland Yard, they'll give it to you without any problems.
But I have another solution. I'll call in the specialist. Brave.
Wiggins, could you come upstairs, please?
At your service, Mr. Holmes.
I need a register, my young friend. If you could borrow it, there will be half a guinea for every one of you. I need the crew list of the Rock of Gibraltar in 1893 and their current employment.
I'm straight on it, Mr. Holmes.
Do you really think they'll find it, Holmes?
My secret police is better than the Yard in many ways.
Here it is, Mr. Holmes. But we can't take it back. It's too risky.
Put it on the table. I'll take care of it. Good work, young Wiggins.
What should we do next, Holmes?
My archive. I can always consult with it if... My archive. I can always consult with it. My analysis table. It is useful for my work. This list shows the senior officers of the Rock of Gibraltar, on which Lady Brackenstall and her maid made their voyage. Lady Brackenstall does not know anyone in England. This must mean that someone on this list is our mysterious visitor. And these are the lists of the senior officers of the Adelaide, Southampton, London Line ships. This list shows the senior officers of the Rock of Gibraltar, on which Lady... This list... I do not think that this sailor has any connection to the case. I do not... This officer was on a ship that sailed half a month ago. He wasn't in London at the time of the crime. This list... This officer was on a ship that sailed... Mr. Jack Crocker was in London upon the date of the crime, and he is due to depart in 2 days. This officer is still at sea, therefore he cannot be involved. This officer is still at sea, therefore he cannot be involved. This officer is still at sea, therefore he cannot be involved. This officer is still at sea. Captain Jack Crocker is our mysterious visitor. He was the only one around at the time of the murder.
This Crocker, do you think...
It would be interesting to meet him. Our young friend... Wiggins, could you find a way to bring this Captain Crocker here to us?
Here? Holmes, that could be dangerous.
No problem, Mr. Holmes.
Mr. Holmes, I was informed that you were looking for me, and I'd like to know why.
Yes, it is important that we talk. You will soon understand why. You are acquainted with Lady Mary Brackenstall, are you not?
Yes, I think I do remember her, from when I was first officer, but I still don't see...
It seems your relationship went beyond that of mere passenger and first officer.
How dare you?
Indeed, how reckless a feeling is love, particularly if one is prepared to commit a murder in its name.
Explain yourself this instant.
You are aware that the murder made the headlines of the morning press. You read the newspaper report, but to your dismay, found it much fabricated. Once you learned that I wanted to see you, you came straight away. You needed to know what I had found.
You... and what do you know?
That evening, you were with Lady Brackenstall, despite the danger.
I'm not afraid, Mr. Holmes. Besides, all of this is just guesswork.
You would be right, if there was no evidence.
What then?
Lady Brackenstall was tied to a chair on the night of the murder. And it was you who tied her up.
You call that evidence?
Yes, as she was tied with a sailor's knot. Your handiwork.
So, it's a sailor who's done it. That proves nothing, Mr. Holmes. I'm not the only sailor in London right now. Your theory is flawed, anyway. On the night of the murder, I was aboard the Sharp. I was supervising the repair of a porthole.
At night?
It was an emergency. There was a leak. You can ask the ship's carpenter. He can confirm.
I'm sure that he can.
Perfect. In that case, we have nothing more to talk about. Good evening, gentlemen.
Holmes, what should we do now? Would you like to check his alibi?
No. There is no doubt that these men will testify in his favor, and there will be no way to check.
So, what then?
So, we must work with what we have. We have all the puzzle pieces.
Now I understand why you dissected the bell rope.
Wiggins, could you ask Mr. Crocker to come here again, please?
Right away.
Why did you make me come here again, Mr. Holmes?
It is over. I know that it was you who killed Sir Eustace Brackenstall.
What?
I know, because of the height at which the rope was cut. The knife used was a sea knife. The knots were sailor's knots, and not least the sheer force that was put behind the killing blow. And because you are the only one who knows Lady Mary Brackenstall in London. And because you love her.
It's true.
It is time for you to tell us the whole truth.
I admit that I loved Mary madly from the first day that I met her. But I never did come to visit her, for I believed that she was in a happy household. When I talked to her maid, who told me everything, I was insane with rage. I was due to set sail for 6 months away. I wanted only to see her again. But it turned into a damnable nightmare when he barged in. He dared raise his hand to her. He was not even worthy of licking her boots. Oh, I regret nothing. I admit I killed the monster out of love for her. She will forgive me if she is able.
Lady Brackenstall already forgave you. She said nothing.
Mary.
But that makes her an accomplice as well as her maid. It places her in danger yet again.
Mr. Holmes.
You would not have managed to protect her.
Till I die, do you hear me? Here is a letter that sets everything clear. And it is the one that should be disclosed to the police. I am the only culprit. Mary had nothing to do with it. Now it is time to end this. You should have let me die. How can I live if Mary suffers?
I am sorry, Captain Crocker, but there has been quite enough death in this case. Inspector, I give you Sir Eustace's killer. He tried his best to perform his own justice.
Well, I'm not surprised. Yes, it was me. I confess.
Here is a piece of evidence that can be used in court.
Perfect. A case that went smoothly for once.
Holmes, for heaven's sake, whatever's going on?
Oh, hello, Watson. You're early. Did you kill all of your patients?
What? Holmes, where have all these wretched bees come from?
I increased the temperature of the room so as to prevent them from hibernating. I needed to take a sample of honey. But it worked, Watson. We will have honey all year round.
Ridiculous and dangerous.
They're domestic bees, Apis mellifera, such industrious workers. Anyway, Watson, I am sorry, but I must leave you. I'm in rather a hurry.
You have a new case?
Yes, but nothing as thrilling as this experiment. A theft of plants at the Royal Botanic Gardens in Kew. I'm helping a minister who's an old friend of mine. You can join me if you like.
Well, I'll admit that I'd far rather accompany you than remain alone here with these workers of yours. Besides, you'll need a helping hand with the flowers you're intending to bring back.
Watson, how ever did you guess?
For the great Sherlock Holmes to bother with the theft of plants. Come on, admit that you're planning to spoil your little bees with some rare pollens.
Since when did I become so transparent? Let us go. Oh dear, Toby. I wasn't aware that you were Watson's new literary ape. A map of London and the
Well, Holmes, here we are at the Royal Botanic Gardens. There's no doubt that this place is beautiful. But are you really intent on investigating the theft of the plants?
Yes, of course.
Don't touch anything else, is that clear? Just go and get a bucket of fertilizer. And without turning it over this time. Good day to you, gentlemen. How may I help you? If you are here for a visit, please do come back on Sunday.
I am afraid that it cannot wait. My name is Sherlock Holmes, and this is my friend and colleague, Dr. Watson. We are investigating the theft of plants that took place here 5 days ago. A remarkable collection, I believe.
So you're the one in charge, eh?
A small favour for a friend. Now, to whom do I have the pleasure of speaking?
I am Martin Hamish. I am the Deputy Director of Kew Gardens, and that fellow yonder is Albert. He works here.
I am delighted to meet you. What can you tell us about the plants?
They were rare and exceptional plants. We presented them at our last exhibition. We haven't removed the stand yet. It is still in the large glass house. We only learned of their disappearance the evening after the exhibition, and nobody saw anything.
No doors were forced?
No, but I would imagine that for a thief it would be fairly easy to gain entry, for there are no guards here.
Well, if you don't mind, we will take a look. Now, you say that it is in the large glass house.
Yes, the one just behind me. Just a second, since Albert has nothing else to do. Albert, show these gentlemen where the exhibition was held.
How many people work here?
Only myself, but occasionally 2 students, Albert, whom you have met, and Miss White.
Here it is. This is the place where the stolen plants were exhibited.
Thank you. Is there something the matter?
Yes, there is. All right, the plants were valuable and rare, but it seems to me that the tragedy that took place here only 2 days ago has been entirely forgotten already.
What tragedy are you referring to?
The director of Kew Gardens, Mr. Montague Dunn, he died here just 2 days ago.
We're very sorry. We were not aware. The two of you were good friends?
He was my father.
Oh dear. Our condolences. We should not be troubling you. Please do excuse us for the intrusion.
You say that he died here, in the large glass house?
Holmes?
Yes, just here, near the door to the colonial collection. He suffered a heart attack. Just like that. So suddenly. It was terrible. Excuse me, gentlemen, but I cannot remain here. If you need me, I'll be in the reserve. That's the room next to the front of the large greenhouse.
Of course, we understand.
Do not
The plants were here. All of them. Here is a list of the stolen plants. Here is a list of the stolen... According to Albert, this is where his father, Montague Dunn, was found dead. Soil. It should have come from a flower pot. The soil on the side of this flower shelf is the same as that on the ground. Fragments of these trees, with their roots in water, must originate from Louisiana.
Ah, yes, the bayou. I remember our visit in the case of the Awakened.
The traces are thinner in some places. These boot marks are fresh. It appears as though someone was dragging their feet. The footprints reveal that someone staggered here. This pot was broken fairly recently. A flower pot recently fell down from these shelves and was misplaced. The door was smashed at shoulder height. This door handle is new. It was recently changed. The esconson was breached near the handle. The door was forced from the inside of the Colonial Collection Room. The handle was changed afterwards.
I think we need to inspect the Colonial...
This sign is broken. Something heavy was dropped upon it. These plants come from all the territories of the British Empire. Very strange. This is one of the outlets of the ventilation system. The smell is strong. It is a detergent. This broken fragment was the result of a heavy blow. A fragment of marble, most likely chipped from a statue or sculpture. These windows were perfectly cleaned. Part of this greenhouse was emptied and thoroughly cleaned. Blood. Someone fell violently against this sign, and they were injured in the clash, most likely a head wound. All the clues around here are quite suspicious. I need my imagination to make sense of it all. This reconstruction reveals a disturbing fact. Montague Dunn damaged the door of the Colonial Collection Room.
He was in a panic? Or the door was locked? Was it an accident? Or a murder, then, I wonder?
Water lily greenhouse. According to this, they have light and moisture control in some parts of the building.
Can I help you, gentlemen?
Do you work here?
Yes, but part-time only, for I'm also studying botany at the University of London.
You're following in your father's footsteps, then. That is commendable.
Well, even if botany is not my strongest suit, there are people who say that I could be a good manager.
Thank you, young man. We shall see you again soon. Albert told us about the tragic death of Mr. Dunn, the late director of Kew Gardens.
Tragic indeed. His heart attack was quite unexpected.
Thank you, Mr. Hamish. We shall continue our investigation. Director's office, cloakroom and laboratory. Nursery. Seed house. Ventilation system. Dry tropics. Water lily greenhouse. Colonial collection. Palm house. A map of Kew Gardens. Reserve. Locked. 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 Nursery. Reserve. Directors on. Locked. Locked. There is a smell of burning. Locked. A ventilation system. It should regulate the temperature of the staff buildings. A ventilation system. The symbol is not from Kew Gardens. The remains of a picture frame. A broom handle was half burned. A door handle? Why would anyone throw such a thing in the fire? The door handle to the colonial collection and that of the fireplace are made of the same material. A protective mask. Someone set it alight, but it did not burn. The plants were set alight fairly recently. A water tank. I asked Inspector Lestrade to take Montague Dunn's body to Scotland Yard.
It's ready for autopsy then.
A beautiful feather. This watch is of a membership card. First of all, let us carry out an external examination. There is an injury to the skull, most probably caused. The vessels and the pupil of the eye appear quite normal. The air from the lungs carries a faint floral aroma. There are no suspicious marks upon the chest. Let us finish our external examination so that we can proceed with the autopsy. No redness, stings, or nothing suspicious. Now, let us examine the internal organs. The stomach tissues show no visible pathological signs. There is a small amount of content. It appears that he breakfasted lightly, only a short while before his death. The liver is enlarged. It would seem suffering from an out. The liver tissue is brown. The heart's blood vessels show no pathological signs. The heart tissue shows no visible. The lungs are congested and edematous. The tissue on the inferior lobe of the right lung is damaged, most probably caused by toxins from an unknown plant. My suspicions have been substantiated. Montague Dunn, the director of Kew Gardens, died from poisoning. Plant poisoning, to be more exact.
You mean...
Yes, it is murder.
We should inform Lestrade.
Yes, but do remember, Watson, that I discovered the murder. The challenge is mine.
The challenge, Holmes?
We need to locate that deadly plant. Such a perfect murder appeals to me.
Murder of any kind appeals to you. Is that all we need to do?
No. We also have the people working at Kew Gardens. Martin Hamish and the son of the victim, Albert Dunn.
And also Miss White, of whom we spoke with Mr. Hamish. Should we bring them all here for interrogation?
No. A few innocuous questions at Kew will suffice, as well as a discreet delve into their personal affairs. Yes, Watson, it is time now to open the doors.
Even those in the staff building? I suppose that is necessary.
We should also be concerned with the victim himself. After all, we don't know very much about Montague Dunn.
You're enjoying this already, aren't you?
More than a little. Locked. Tell me, Mr. Hamish, do you grow the more deadly variety of plant here?
You mean insectivorous? Yes, but nothing larger than that.
Mr. Hamish, can you explain to us what happened to the colonial collection? It seems somewhat depleted.
But, most likely maintenance work, tidying up.
You're not sure, then? But you're the deputy director.
Well, I am busy. I cannot be everywhere at once.
As deputy director, how was your relationship with Montague Dunn?
To be honest with you, Mr. Holmes, it could have been better. You see, every Tuesday he would carry out his inspection of the gardens, but it was solely to make an impression. Great pretense that he cared at all. He would give out absurd orders, ignoring anyone else's opinion. He would then disappear for the rest of the week. He was what some might call a man of action. I'd say rather he was overzealous and chaotic. So after all, it was no wonder, perhaps, that he ended up like that, if you take into consideration his kind of lifestyle.
You mentioned that Mr. Dunn led a particular lifestyle.
Well, it's no secret that he enjoyed, celebrating, shall we say? He was a member of the London Smart Set. He was famous for it. That and...
And?
He had an eye for the ladies, to put it mildly, Mr. Holmes.
Mr. Hamish, can you tell us who holds the keys to the locked greenhouses?
That would be Albert, Mr. Dunn's son. Yes, Albert keeps all the keys, and one can only imagine why.
What do you mean?
Well, he was never interested in Kew Gardens before, and now all of a sudden he's trying to act as if he owns the place. I think he wants to take over the management here. He'd do better to leave that to me. He has no experience. No, none at all.
What is your opinion of Albert as a student of botany?
He's useless. I often tell him so, and I can only give him cleaning tasks. Botany is not his life's work, and his father well knew it. He was furious about it.
He was?
Oh, yes. He forced his son to work here, and he never missed an opportunity to criticize him publicly.
Are you able to elaborate on that?
Well, for example, with our last exhibition here, Mr. Dunn had Albert make a presentation speech. But then, while the lad was speaking, Mr. Dunn interrupted him, asking him difficult questions, making him look like a failure. It was with the intention of making a fool of him, Mr. Holmes.
That must have been terribly humiliating.
Yes, he was crushed, and he had to leave. Everybody was making fun of poor Albert. That is, except for Miss Margaret White, who is such a nice lady and who always takes pity on Albert.
You mentioned a Miss White. Would you tell us more about her?
She is a student who works here part-time. She is quite charming indeed. She possesses a great talent for botany. You should take a look at some of her experiments that she carried out in the laboratory. Ah, if only she were not so naive.
Why naive?
The way she used to flutter around Mr. Montague Dunn. And he couldn't help but be flattered by all her attention. How could an intelligent woman such as Miss White not see through his game? I can only scratch my head and wonder.
Thank you, Mr. Hamish. We shall continue our investigation. Locked. Locked. Dry tropic. These flower pots are beautiful. The symbol is according to this, they have dry tropics. Water lily. Water lily greenhouse. According to Who is Miss Margaret White?
Ah, she is the young lady who studies with me. She visits here sometimes to help out with the greenhouses. In fact, she should be here today. She wanted to work at the seed house. That's the small greenhouse across from the large glass house.
We noticed that a part of the colonial collection has been cleared.
Ah, at the moment I'm just dealing with the storage room. I don't know much about the other rooms.
I imagine that your relationship with your father may have been a strained one.
Yes. I cannot say that he was a kind man, for he never listened to me at all. He forced me to work here. But now, after his death, I've been pondering it over. Perhaps he wasn't so wrong about me after all. I have to follow his path, and I have to manage Kew Gardens, and I can do it. I can be as good as any other who works here.
Would you please tell us about Martin Hamish, the Deputy Director?
Well, I have to tell you that Mr. Hamish is not and has never been the Deputy Director of Kew Gardens. My father would not have tolerated it.
Indeed? Well, that is most interesting. He told us that he was.
Yes, because he believes that the management should be passed down to him now that my father is dead. But in actual fact, Mr. Hamish only has the honour of being the garden's longest-serving employee. In fact, if we are to think logically at all, should be me who takes over the management of Kew Gardens.
Do you not have a good relationship with Mr. Hamish?
I suppose so. But we have very little in common. Mr. Hamish loves his plants and Kew Gardens, and I cannot say that I share his passion.
I see. And how was his relationship with your father?
Oh, he hated my father. It was obvious. He would be furious whenever my father boasted of Kew Gardens in the newspapers or at conferences. He was convinced that my father was stealing all of the credit for himself. That my father treated Mr. Hamish in the same way as he treated anyone. Dismissively. With indifference.
Do you hold the keys to all of these locked doors?
Yes, you can have them. But I cannot give you the keys to the cloakroom. The employees' effects are private. I am sure you understand.
Thank you, young man. We shall see you again soon.
Just be careful with the...
Champagne. Montague Dunn had good taste. French wine. A remarkable vintage. Newspapers discussing Kew Gardens. a photograph of Montague Dunn and Reynold Hamish. I suggest that we don't tell Miss Margaret White about this document. Locked. There was a bottle here. It left behind.
Gold dust. Good.
The gold is almost immune to chemical attacks, so it may be a valuable auxiliary for various experiments.
But
several drops of the substance were spilled. The bottle is no longer here, but it is possible to detect. chemicals, a sufficient quantity for some serious...
A phonograph used for voice...
Yes, this is quite a modern laboratory.
And it seems clear from these multiple experiments that plants to respond to their environment and have formed...
Study report.
And it seems clear from these multiple experiments that
Study report. I don't hear it.
Martin Hamish's perception of plants. The notion of communication in the plant world has long been considered marginal, yet I remain convinced that some plants do indeed transmit chemical signals in the event...
A study report by Martin. This is a table for experiments. It resembles my own.
Only this one is kept in good order, Holmes.
It appears as though the gloves, waterproof.
Do they grow dangerous?
Such masks are generally worn when a botany book. This student's book belongs to Albert. Locked.
Holmes, Albert Dunn didn't...
It does not matter. Open. The employee's cloakroom. Miss White's locker. Apparently, Miss White is... A draft of the letter that Miss White... These jewels must be worth a small fortune. A vanity purse. Martin Hamish studied chemistry. Martin... Father and I, Kew Gardens. A review on rare and exotic plants. Albert's locker. A rejection letter from the British Royal... Specialist articles on shipyards and ship. Albert Dunn has a great passion. Young Albert, standing with a woman in front of London University. Locked.
What should we do?
These young plants must be delicate if they are kept. We can see the interior of the colonial. This poster is for an exhibition that Martin Hamish was directing. This certificate belongs to Martin Hamish. A glasses case. A thesis written. This area serves as an award presented to Martin Hamish, a master's degree diploma. It is a bust. I am curious if the marble that we found... Here it is. The marble fragment that we found in the Colonial Collection Room is what... The seeds of plants. Locked.
You have some very beautiful plants here.
Why, thank you, sir, and good day to you too. But
Oh, I do beg your pardon. My name is Dr. John Watson. This is my good friend, Mr. Sherlock Holmes.
I am honored to make your acquaintance, gentlemen. My name is Margaret White. Excuse me, but are you Sherlock Holmes, the great detective?
Yes, I am he.
What a pleasure to see you here at Kew Gardens. Are you working on a case?
Yes, a theft of plants that took place here a few days ago after their most recent exhibition.
Oh yes, of course. I quite forgot about that.
Oh, it's quite understandable that you might forget about the theft of the plants, miss, after the tragedy that took place here.
Yes. The director was a truly good man. It is such a terrible misfortune.
Would you happen to know why part of the...
No, I have never been there.
Do you work here?
Part-time only. I am a biology student at the London University. I attend the same classes as the son of Mr. Montague Dunn. That is how I found my chance to work here for part of my thesis.
How well did you know Mr. Montague Dunn?
He was a master, a great leader. I saw him almost as a spiritual father.
He had an exceptional nature?
Oh yes, indeed. He was always so active.
What?
He loved his son dearly and wanted the very best for him. It made...
Most of the doors in Kew Gardens are locked. Do you have a key to this room?
Oh, yes. Albert gave me a set of duplicate keys. He agreed I might carry out my studies with...
Thank you, miss. None of the 3 people who work at Kew Gardens know why half of the colonial collection was cleared. So, someone is lying. It is obvious.
Someone should take Toby. Have you found... Someone should take... Have you found...
Come on, Toby. We have some work for you to do. Let us go to Kew Gardens. Let us take Toby to the laboratory. Search, Toby. Congratulations, Toby. Now let us see. This is the bottle that was used in the laboratory. It was buried. There is still some liquid remaining in a tiny caterpillar. Not surprising to see one in a garden. I perceive that you are passionate about the Royal Navy.
Passionate? No, not really. I like ships, that is all.
Are you quite sure? You do not seem to be so interested in plants.
It's difficult, that's all. My future is here. It has never been about anything else.
And yet I know that the Royal Naval College rejected your application.
Ah, you truly are as clever as they say. Yes, that's correct. And in fact, my father was strongly against the idea. He did his best to ruin my plans, although I almost did succeed. But my dreams were shattered, Mr. Holmes.
Thank you, young man. We shall... Seed hat.
Kew Gardens is such an exciting...
Mr. Hamish, was someone from your family connected with Kew Gardens?
Family? No. I'm the only one with a passion for botany.
I do not think so. This photograph of you and your father at Kew Gardens suggests the opposite.
But you have no right to.
Do tell us more about your father.
He was, indeed, the greatest botanist of his time in the British Empire. He worked together with Montague Dunn until the end of his life. He brought me in at the age of 12.
Did he get on well with Mr. Dunn?
No, I couldn't say that. They expanded Kew Gardens together, that was all. And it was all my father's work, for Dunn always lived the high life.
So Mr. Dunn was not helping your father?
Oh, yes, he provided the financial support. And as far as he was concerned, that fulfilled his role. But the worst of it was, he declared himself as the master of Kew Gardens. Fame meant nothing to my father, so it was easy for Mr. Dunn to take all the credit.
There is a bust of Montague Dunn in the nursery.
A bust? Oh, that old thing. Further proof of that outrageous ego of his.
But why in that room in particular?
Oh, I don't know. It has always been there.
It is strange, because I recovered a fragment of the bust inside the Colonial Collection Room.
Really? Oh, well, so I am mistaken. It ought to have been removed during the cleanup. This room is so small.
Do you know?
I have no idea. Do you have any more questions like this? Because...
Evidently. Thank you, Mr. Hamish. We shall continue. That is not the one I need. 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 That is not the... That is not the one I need. That is... That is not the one I need. That is... That is not the one I need. That is... That is... Here it is.